I'm a carpenter by trade. 48 years old. I've worked with my hands longer than most people have worked at anything. There's honesty in wood, it tells you what it is, what it can bear, and when it's had enough. Maybe that's why I noticed the change long before the picture. But I said nothing. Her name's Claire. We've been married 22 years. Built a life from scratch, 2 kids, a house I remodeled with my own sweat, and a rhythm that I thought meant something. But over time, her laughter stopped reaching me. Her phone stayed face down more often. The small touches, the glances, they all faded like old stain in sunlight. Then came the photo. I was in the garage, working late, covered in sawdust, when I checked my phone. She'd posted it just minutes earlier. Her and a man from her office. I'd seen him before, the kind with a polished smile and unscuffed hands. They stood close, too close, and beneath the picture. My real partner, Yellow Heart. My thumb hovered over the screen. My chest felt tight, but not with rage, something heavier. Like a floorboard snapping beneath you. So I commented. Nothing dramatic. Just truth. Congratulations. The divorce papers are on the kitchen table. Then I put my phone down and went back to sanding the frame. The next morning, the house was quieter than usual. Claire hadn't come home. Or maybe she had and left before dawn. I didn't check. I made coffee like I always do, 2 mugs. But this time, I drank both. The divorce papers weren't a bluff. I'd filled them out weeks ago. I just hadn't signed. Something in me had hoped, maybe foolishly, that I was wrong. That it was stress, or distance, or midlife weight pressing down on us both. But when someone tells the world who their real partner is, and it isn't you, the hoping stops. Around 9:15, her car pulled into the driveway. She walked in like she still had the right to, keys jingling, heels clicking against the hardwood floor. No guilt on her face, just a guarded coolness, like someone returning to a meeting after a difficult call. You could have called me, she said, setting her bag down without looking at me. I did, I replied calmly, meeting her eyes. It's just, I used the comment section instead of the phone. She flinched, just a little. But it was there. You embarrass me, she said. I took a step closer. No, I said. I told the truth. You embarrassed yourself. There was a pause. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally said, It was just a joke. We're close at work. People say that kind of thing online all the time. Then let them be married to you, I said. Let them wake up next to you for 20 years, change diapers at 3 a.m., fix your mother's porch, bury your dog, patch your walls, and still come home every night wanting to make it work. She stood still. But I wasn't waiting for tears or justifications. I'd given enough of my life to silence. Today, I was done with it. She leaned on the kitchen counter, arms crossed like a defense mechanism, like posture might hold back consequence. But I wasn't there for a fight. I wasn't there for pity either. I don't want to throw away 20 years, she said finally. I raised a hand gently, stopping her mid-sentence. Claire, I said, voice steady. You already did. You just posted the headline. She shook her head, like I was missing the point, like I was the one who misunderstood the rules of modern connection. It wasn't meant like that. That's the problem, I said. You didn't mean it, but you meant it. It slipped out of you because it's who you are now. Maybe who you've been for a while. But I haven't changed. I've just stopped ignoring the signs. She looked at me, then a man who had reached the edge and refused to jump just to keep pretending. I'm not broken, I said. And I'm not staying silent to keep the peace while you redefine what love means for your convenience. She blinked, startled by the clarity. Maybe she expected anger. Maybe silence. But not this. Not a man who knew his worth and still kept his tone even. I've spent decades making sure this home stood solid, I continued. Not just the beams and nails, the trust, the time, the shared weathering. And now you've made it clear. I was the support beam. You were already out the door. She looked away, and I let her. She needed the space to sit in that truth. I wasn't there to punish her. I wasn't there to beg. I was there to stand, for myself, finally. She sat down at the kitchen table, the same one where we once planned vacations, discussed school plays, where she once cried over her father's diagnosis, and I held her hand in silence. Today, she sat across from me like a stranger unsure of the rules. But I knew mine now. Do you remember the day we bought this table? I asked. She glanced up. Hesitant. Yeah. The second-hand place by the highway. You picked it, I said. Said it had character. Scratches, water stains, old marks from someone else's life. But we sanded it. Gave it new legs. You said it was worth saving because it had a story. She nodded slowly. I slid the manila folder toward her, the divorce papers. No slam. No drama. Just motion. So did we, I said. But I'm not going to be the only one sanding and patching while someone else adds fresh damage. A long breath escaped her lips. No arguments left. Only realization that I wasn't bluffing, and I wasn't angry. I was finished. I'm not throwing stones, Claire, I added. I'm just not staying in a house where the doors keep opening for someone else. I'm a man, not a placeholder. She opened the folder slowly, like it might bite. Her fingers hesitated on the pages. I still care about you, she said quietly. I believe you, I said. But love without loyalty is just sentiment. And I'm too old for sentiments. I build things. Real things. Silence again. Not empty. Heavy. Thick with the truth we'd both known for longer than either of us admitted. She looked around, at the walls I'd painted, the trim I carved, the ceiling fan I fixed after that summer storm. I never thought you'd actually, she began. Stand up? I offered. Speak for myself? She nodded. That's the part you misjudged, I said. You forgot I've been building more than shelves and frames. I've been building myself too. And for the first time in years I felt tall. She didn't sign the papers right away. That wasn't the point. I hadn't slid them across the table like a weapon. I offered them like a mirror, not to punish her, but to show her who we had become. I didn't think it mattered, she said at last, her voice like someone remembering a dream just out of reach. The post. The caption. It felt harmless. I stood up, not in anger, but with purpose. I took a step toward the living room and ran my hand along the oak banister I'd built with my father's old tools. When you build something with care, everything matters. The angle of the cut. The grain of the wood. But polish you take time to apply. You skip one step, it looks fine at first. But then it warps. Then it splits. She was watching me now. Not defensively. Not with defiance. Just seeing me fully for the first time in a long time. You called him your real partner, I said, turning back to her. Do you even know what that word costs? Her eyes welled up, but I didn't flinch. This wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. There's a kind of dignity in naming your hurt without apology. I showed up every day, I continued. Even when I was tired. Even when it was hard. And not just in the easy ways. You think love is about grand gestures, flowers, trips, surprises. But love is holding your breath when your partner is grieving. Fixing what's broken without making them feel guilty. Choosing them when the world is louder than their voice. She wiped her cheek, but I kept going, not out of spite, but out of truth I had buried too long. I never wanted perfection, I said. I wanted honesty. Effort. Presence. You gave me performance. You gave them captions. Her lips trembled, but I didn't move to comfort her. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally cared enough about myself to stop softening reality to keep someone else from feeling it. I won't chase. I won't plead, I said, walking back to the table. But I also won't live in a story where I'm cast as an extra while someone else gets the spotlight you once promised was mine. And then I sat. Upright. Calm. Steady. like a man who had nothing left to hide, and everything still to reclaim. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't reach for it. I didn't need to look. I already knew. Maybe it was him. Maybe it wasn't. But the fact that I had to wonder, that was enough. I don't hate you, Claire, I said, my voice low but anchored. That would make this easier. Clean. But love doesn't disappear. It just gets buried under what we let slide. She looked at the screen like it held an answer she couldn't read. Her mouth opened, but this time I spoke first. I know his name, I said. Matt, right? She froze. I didn't say it like a threat. I didn't throw it like a blade. I just said it plainly, like someone who had stopped pretending not to see smoke curling through the rafters. I met him once at the company barbecue, I continued. He shook my hand without looking me in the eye. Called me sir. Talked more to his reflection in the window than the people around him. She looked down, her thumb pressing into her palm like she was trying to keep herself grounded. I saw the way he stood next to you, I added. Too close. The kind of close that comes from repetition, not mistake. Nothing happened, she whispered. I nodded. Not physically, maybe. But you gave him pieces of you that stopped belonging to me a long time ago. And the truth is, I let it happen, quietly. I convinced myself it was nothing. That you needed space. That I was being dramatic. I leaned in just slightly, not with aggression, but intent. Until you told the world that he was the real partner, I said. You didn't just betray the vows, you erased the man who kept them. Her breath caught. That moment, that one small gasp, it held everything she hadn't said for years. And I didn't rush to fill it. I let the silence do what words never could, make her feel the weight of presence. My presence. A man not retreating into himself. Not folding. But standing with his spine straight, voice clear, and soul unhidden. You didn't lose me, I said. You handed me away. And now, I was taking myself back. I stood by the front door now, hands resting on the frame I had installed myself. The grain still carried marks from when I'd cut it too long the first time and had to plane it down. A lesson in adjustment, something I knew well. Claire followed me with her eyes, not her body. She hadn't moved from the table. Her face was pale with realization, but I wasn't looking for regret. People always ask why men leave suddenly, I said, looking out through the glass at the quiet street. But it's never sudden. It's 1,000 small cuts. 1,000 it's nothing moments. Until one day, a man decides not to bleed for someone who stopped noticing. She spoke then, voice raw. So what now? You want me to sign and just disappear from your life? I turned back to her, not cold, but sure. No, I said. I want you to take responsibility. You don't have to vanish. We built a life. There's still respect, or at least there can be. But I won't stand in a marriage alone just to keep it from falling. I walked to the hallway and pulled out a duffel. Not dramatic, not slammed on the floor. Just a bag I'd packed last night with clothes, tools, my shaving kit. The essentials. A man's life in a canvas sack. Her voice cracked, just slightly. You're really doing this? I looked her in the eyes, not with triumph, not with spite. Just with truth. No, I said. You did this. I'm just choosing to live honestly now. And that was the difference. She rose then. Not to stop me. Not even to protest. But because something in her recognized that this wasn't a bluff. This wasn't about punishment. This was a man standing in the ruins with clean hands, choosing dignity over resentment. Where will you go? She asked, not with control, with something softer. I gave a small breath of a smile. Where I can hear myself think. Maybe my brother's cabin for a few days. Maybe a hotel. Doesn't matter. What matters is that I walk out with my integrity, not in pieces. I opened the door. Light spilled in. Then I paused, turned to her one last time, and said with quiet strength. You don't get to define my worth by who notices you in an office hallway. I'm more than a background figure in your curated life. And then, not escaping, not running, I stepped out. Because real men don't just build homes. They know when it's time to build themselves anew. The door closed behind me without a slam. Just a soft click of the latch. And silence. But for the first time in a long while, it wasn't empty. It breathed. I didn't get into the truck right away. I didn't drive off into the night like in the movies. I just stood on the porch with my bag in hand, staring at the old maple tree across the yard, the one I once thought about cutting down because the roots were pushing into the foundation. But I never cut it. It stood. Just like I did. The air was cool, fresh, carried the scent of earth just before rain. And in that air, no questions. No self-doubt. No voices asking if I'd done the right thing. I wasn't looking for right anymore. I'd chosen real. I set the bag in the bed of the truck. Driver's side door stayed open. I stood next to it, not for effect, just to make sure this wasn't a retreat. And it wasn't. Not this time. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message. Not from her. From Lucas, one of my older students at the trade school, where I occasionally teach woodworking basics. Sir, you coming in today? I've got a question about mortise and tenon joints. And I kinda just want to talk. I stared at the message. And something shifted. Not joy. Not comfort. Anchor. I still mattered. I still had something to pass on. I was still here. I called him. No hesitation. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll bring you the plans, and show you how to fix your crooked joint. Then we'll talk. That work? His voice came back, surprised, hopeful. Yeah, sir. Thanks. You sound different today. Maybe I just sound like myself for the first time. I hung up. And instead of climbing into the truck, I turned back, not to the house, but to the shop. Not the place where we slept, the place where I built. I flipped on the light. Pulled on my worn apron. Laid a thick slab of oak onto the bench. And I made the first cut, clean, sharp, honest. That sound wasn't a scream. It was the voice of a man who no longer stays silent. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to help this video reach more viewers. See you in the next one.